Hi, I'm Brian Dunn, and welcome to the most important podcast ever. What makes it so important? It's not about me, it's about you. This podcast is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, the moments of resilience, the lessons learned, and the small acts that made a big difference. From retail floors to boardrooms, we'll share the untold stories that shape lives and careers. This week, our guest is Debbie Estes. Debbie is such an important person whose name you don't know. Debbie worked with me and was an important mentor to me about live events. When Debbie first got her hands on me, I thought live events were just about slapping your name on something and what's the ROI and what's this and what's that. And those things are important. But Debbie really taught me about the importance of strategic placement of your brand and lighting up corners of your community and bringing in amazing things. Debbie's been involved with bringing a Super Bowl to Minnesota. Debbie's been involved with bringing Magic Johnson to our community. Debbie's been involved with so many huge things, and she's going to talk about a lot of those tonight. How are you, Debbie?
I am doing well, thank you.
I am so thrilled to have you here. And I got so excited during my introduction of you. I'm sure I left off some very important things. I'd love it if you filled in the blanks a little bit.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much for those very kind words. But I kind of think of myself as this ordinary person that just has been so lucky in their career to have so many great opportunities. And to kind of start backwards, I feel right now I'm in my encore career. I worked really hard to deserve the fun I'm having now. But if you go back to like when I went to college, and I never in my wildest dreams, you could have never told me what was going to happen, um, in my career and how long I've been working. I was a kid that graduated with a degree in history and political science. And all of a sudden, I found myself a senior. I wasn't getting married. What in the heck was I going to do? And as we had talked before, you know, the the positions and the places the jobs I was able to secure to put my career together, I don't know if I'd ever be hired now for them. But I started out working for the governor. Then I had an opportunity to go work for the White House. But then I was in kind of my mid 20s. I'd worked for the governor, the White House. I was out of a job. And it's like what do I do now? But luckily, I was learned about special events and marketing. And I thought, well, heck, I'll go work for Dayton's. Well, I didn't know the whole world wanted to work for Dayton's at the time. But I was very fortunate to network my way in. And actually, the CMO of Dayton's at the time was from Ohio, and I was originally from Ohio, and he had a history degree. And so we kind of bonded. And I spent 10 years at Dayton's, 10 years at Target, and then had the fortunate opportunity to spend 13 years at Best Buy, all in marketing and doing events, but kind of that thread of great hometown teams, hometown corporations that really put the customer first and built wonderful memories for the customer. And I just had the opportunity to help out.
I think you're being very humble. What did you do in the White House? What did you do for the White House?
I was an advanced person. So I would travel, ahead of time. And mostly I would do work with the press. So, and that really helped because, kind of helped my career moving forward because I've always said I'm a very visual person. I'm not a person that's as articulate or as you know, uh, articulate, but I can visualize things. So, what does that camera see when you put together an event? How do the fans and the customers all come together, and what do they experience?
Never more powerful than what you did inside the new Twins ballpark. You
Hmm.
could not watch a play without seeing the logo everywhere,
Yes.
everywhere. I couldn't believe it. I used to go to the stadium because I love the Twins. I love baseball. And it would almost bring a tear to my eye. It was so beautiful. And there were so many times when a big play would happen, front page of the sports section, there's the
Yes.
catcher making a play, and there's our logo.
Or that famous shot of Torrey Hunter against the wall,
Yes,
catching the
yes,
final out.
yes,
Yes.
yes. How do I
Oh,
not have a picture of that? I'm going to have to find a picture of that because
yeah. Well,
that's
I got
powerful.
to tell you, I always rooted for the cam. I learned to root for the cameraman.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to talk about all the famous projects and a lot of the famous people you work with. But I'm just curious, by way of prelude, was there somebody specific that believed in you early on that opened doors for you, or was it just you grinding, or was it a combination?
I think it was just a combination. When I do informational interviews, and I actually, in the last couple of years, I've been going over to the university and talking about careers or sports marketing. I said, you never know why you meet a person.
Right.
And you'll get to know a person, collect the card, because I can't tell you how many times I met a person, and then you go back, and or you have an opportunity or a situation, or you need to solve something, and you go, I know a person to call.
Right.
So,
Right.
and it's always isn't the reason you originally met a person, right?
Right. Right.
So it's
Right.
just a matter of like getting engaged and um, meeting people and not forgetting them. But I've been, a good example is when I came back from Washington, I was looking for a job, and I thought, oh, I'll go work for Dayton Special Events, not realizing the whole world wanted to work for Dayton Special Events. It wasn't going to be an easy job. Uh, even just getting into the door to talk to somebody, it was like, fortress. But my high school teacher now was working for Dayton Hudson Corporation, and I reached out to him. He picked up the phone. He called the CMO. And next thing I know, the fortress door opened, and I met this person from Ohio that had a history degree. But who would have ever thought, sitting in my
Right.
civics class, the connection to marketing and retail? Um, so, I mean, and I just have dozens of stories of you know, just remembering people and reaching out, and it's usually to
Yeah.
solve a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And your problem solving skills are legendary because has there
Mhm.
ever been a major live event that didn't have a problem? No. I mean, I remember when we did Lenny Kravitz, there were problems,
Oh
but
yeah.
we're trying to do a free concert for the city of Boston, and there are problems. There's
There,
always problems. And I
but
remember watching you navigate those things and really having such respect and a little bit of awe for how well you were able
thanks.
to navigate all of that.
You
Um,
know, I think big ideas come from solving problems. So you have two different ways of looking at it. It's like you can't just sit in a room and go, what's the next big idea? If it's the next big idea in designing technology, is the next big idea in marketing, it's like you're usually solving a problem, and then you're coming up with a big idea and you're growing it. But then doing events, I always said, it's on your feet, not your seat. And you just sit there and you look for things. And
yeah,
you just, some things run perfectly, and some things you need to catch before they hit the ground.
Right,
and,
right,
you know,
right.
and not crash.
That's exactly right. I'm also as I was getting ready to talk to you today, and I'm so excited to have the opportunity to reconnect with you because we haven't talked in a while. Um, you work for Dayton's, Target, and Best Buy, three strong and distinctly different cultures, I think. And can I just say, I miss Dayton's so much.
Oh,
Never more so than this time of year as we're heading into
mhm,
holiday. Man,
right.
they did it right.
They did it right. They really
Yeah,
did, really understanding. When you look at the Christmas auditorium, the generations of people that went to the Dayton's auditorium and the Christmas auditorium and the flower show, and really created emotional touch points for people.
yeah,
And you just don't have that now. When it's kind of a funny thing during the Super Bowl. They were renovating Dayton's, and they're putting Dayton's on the outside. And we would go over and do site checks over there because we put part of the fan fest in Dayton's, and then the stage that we put the green room there. And I would be doing site checks a lot of times with younger people or people not in the Twin Cities. And every floor, in every corner, I would have a story about that building.
yeah.
At a
Oh
certain
yeah.
point, I realized I'm entertaining myself, not necessarily them. But
But go for it anyway.
I, I went for it anyway because it was so sad.
Yeah.
And, I remember there was an elevator we kept going up and down that I rode in that elevator with an elephant, which was kind of a really dumb thing to do. But every time we get in that elevator, I'd say, I rode in this elevator with a, 3,000-pound elephant who can,
That's amazing. I remember you talk about the power of those memories. I remember every year, my late wife and I would go to Dayton's, walk the eighth floor, and spend a day Christmas shopping, take a day off.
Mhm.
And then when the boys came along, uh, uh, both two of the three I talked to today, they both told me to say hello and thank you for everything. And
Okay.
anyway, I still think about that eighth floor and
Mhm.
how pushing the stroller with those boys. And it's so powerful. And it's just, I'm going to sound like such an old guy, but what a shame we don't have that
Right.
today because it
Yep.
was really amazing. Um,
Actually, my first job at Dayton's was that Christmas auditorium, managing it, and I had to hire Santa Clauses.
they always had a good one, did
Yeah.
they?
Oh,
Yeah.
there was a standard on those Santa Clauses.
They're, there certainly needs to be because there is go wrong potential, go bad potential there.
Yes.
Um, one of the things that I really felt from you was this idea that you're creating experiences people feel. I remember when you were educating me, and at the beginning, I was like, how much is it going to cost? What do we get for this? And you're like, we're creating experiences people feel, not
Right.
just events they attend. And I was just wondering if maybe you could say a little bit about that, because I think we're in the era of experiences
Yes.
now.
And people want those experiences. Well, there's the quantitative and the qualitative, and we were also, when we're working together, people go, I don't want to pay for a sign. But I always believed you had to put a lot of things together, back a house, front a house, and you don't want it to keep it a secret. But I think one of the fun stories I tell, when I first came to Best Buy, I mean, no one knew who I was, right? And there were a lot of changes and new employees. And Mike Linton said, go over and talk. The Wild's been trying to talk to us. It was first year of the Wild, first year of Excel. So, and I knew everybody over there. And I went over there and they said, well, we need televisions. And it's like, well, I work for a store that has televisions. I think
Televisions we got.
televisions we got. Well, I kind of learned a lesson. This was in late summer, early fall. And like the buyer's going, well, we have an inventory for holiday. And it's like, well, I only need like 100. Come on. And so I learned a little bit more about inventory at holiday than I knew ahead of time. But we did dasher boards and we did broadcast and we did um, concourse activation. But kind of no one knew who I was and kind of what I was doing, right? And then all of a sudden the season opened and there's so many hockey fans that work at Best Buy and they went to the game, and it's like you're holding your breath. It's like, because the people that knew about it, to your point, it was all quantitative. How many are we going to sell of this? How many are we going to sell of that? And but coming like the buzz of like, oh my gosh, we own the inside of Excel Arena. Excel might have the name on the outside. It was definitely Best Buy inside. It was funny. We did a big press conference today where Matt Maka, the president of the Wild, and he actually brought it up in reminiscing about that first year today. Um, and but it is, we Best Buy, Target, we have so many Fortune 500 companies based in the Twin Cities that is trying to attract the best talent in, from big schools on the East Coast, the West Coast. And we have a community that we need to keep where people want to work, live, raise a family, play, and by attract, we have big sports, we have a big university, and that just makes this community great and rich. I mean, we have cold weather, but you'll make enough money to go to Jamaica, spring break. But to actually have good education, and you don't have to travel to go to Super Bowl, you don't have to travel to go to the NBA games, just makes our community richer.
No question about it. And you talked about the inside of the stadiums.
Hmm.
We were working in an environment where there was a real headwind against naming rights.
Right.
And and I remember when you said, we can own the inside of these
Yeah.
places.
Right.
And you brought that to life so amazingly.
Yeah.
And I think it was such an example of doing something that nobody else thought could be done. And I think you did it beautifully. And I'm just wondering, did you have a vision for that? Or did you learn that as you went?
I totally learned that as I went. And it goes back to solving problems. It's like, okay, we need to make this work. How do we make this work? And how do we get to the return? And you always want to be creative. And you also look at the strategy. When we open, Target Field, we definitely own, I called it Target Field on the outside, but it was Best Buy ballpark inside. But what were we doing? Phones were important. So we, and charging stations. So we put this charging station by part of the food court that was actually written up as kind like a hot dating place for people to go meet. They get beers, they go over charging, charge a station, and it became kind of this hot space to meet people. We did a camera where you could, you know, take a photo and upload it. We did a gaming area. So looking at the strategy, which changes a lot, and how do you bring it to life? So we had a lot of, as I got to say, a lot of good toys to play with, a lot of good strategies to play with.
Yep, for
And you
sure.
can't think of them all yourself. There's a certain messy stage where you just bring all the ideas together. Then you figure out what works, what can you afford, how do you put it together.
I want to tell you though, and tell the world, your instincts were amazing. And I learned very quickly, your instincts were something I paid great attention to. And it's quite a testament to your ability to strategically think while you're in the throes of operating a big, messy project, because all these things are messy, right?
Oh,
And everybody
otherwise.
angling for what they want. And success has so many parents, and
That's
things that
true.
don't work is an orphan. And I always think of my dear friend, the late great Gary Arnold. He and I
Hmm.
used to talk about that. He taught me two things. He brought to life the notion that success has many parents. And
Yes.
he also said to me, I talked to Lenny and his people about doing something for us. And I said, Gary, great news. It's not about the money. And then Gary looked at me and started laughing. And I
Yes.
love Lenny, so this is not meant in any way to be disparaging. Gary looked at me and laughed as if to say, my dear child, the one thing you absolutely know for sure when they
Hmm.
tell you it's not about the money, that it is completely,
Completely.
entirely about the money.
That
And
is true.
yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Hey,
Well,
I I've been trying to hold off, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about some of the amazing artists and that you've worked with in big projects. We'd love to get a little inside scoop.
like I said, there's stories you can tell and stories that you can't tell, but it's always fun. One of the things I grew up as a young child loving sports, and and all of a sudden now I have a career where I can, I need sports stars. They help bring things to life. And the one thing I learned early in my career was that retired, but retired legends who didn't make millions and millions of dollars were very accessible. And they were fabulous to work with, like Henry Aaron and Pete Rose at a time. So, so that was really fun, and just, and people enjoyed because so many of them were multi-generation, like kids and parents, like when you worked with these athletes. I mean, one of our favorites was Magic Johnson.
For
And
sure.
yes, and I had the opportunity of working with Magic Johnson at Target when he was a player. And he was really nice, but I mean, he was a hot shot player, right? And then we all know kind of the journey of his career. Well, then all of a sudden at Best Buy, one, he's a legend, but he has a whole new um, mission in life, and that was to bring economic value and educate people about the urban markets. And Best Buy was going into, the urban markets, and you were so much a part of that vision of, so he could help us get that street cred we need as we go into those markets. It's like, maybe we don't want to put the Rolling Stones when we first walk into the store in
Right.
those
Right.
markets. And,
Right.
you know, in Magic Johnson Enterprises, but part of the relationship with him was also events and bringing him into the community, and we had such amazing um, experiences with Magic, how we brought him into different communities, but not necessarily in our store for autographing, but more engaging with that customer to give us that street cred that you need to come to Best Buy. That's a good store. They know you.
Yep. And Irvin, who I got to know well, uh, he was such a treat to work with, and he had great strategic input.
Oh,
Uh,
hmm.
and he was much more than Magic Johnson, one of the
Oh,
greatest basketball players ever. I always called him in the business context. I always called him Irvin. I said, I
Urban.
can't call you Magic because you're a business partner for me here, and I want your strategic input. And and he was really really great. That was a big get for us, Debbie. You did a great
That
job with that.
that was, but and he was one that um, you figure he had this amazing basketball career to do what he's doing now, or what he was doing when we we're at Best Buy. That's where he should really be known for, of what he did for AIDS, what he did for urban markets, and showing that you can make money in urban markets,
Yep.
and how to do it. Yeah.
I remember that day when he was diagnosed, and talk about a
Oh.
kick to the stomach,
Hmm.
and what he built from that at a time when people didn't understand what HIV was,
Yes.
and they didn't understand it was just this big uh, pox on your house. And
Hmm.
what Irvin did in rebuilding not only his personal brand, but building this business, I think is remarkable. And
Yeah.
his is a story I admire greatly. And he got
Yeah.
real involved in our community too.
Oh, do you remember, you were there when we sponsored him as the speaker at Urban Ventures at Crystal Ray?
Yeah.
And so he came in as a speaker, and John Thompson was the um, president of their foundation. And this gymnasium was filled with everybody that was anybody in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And they had a young girl introduce him. I think she was president of the senior class. And she probably didn't even know who Magic was before then, right? So she gets up there and she reads her little introduction, and she runs back to her table as fast as she could. And Magic lumbers up there, and Magic goes, I can't remember, will you come back here? And she's like looking at, like, wide eyed. And he goes, come back here. You ran away way too fast. And he brings her back on stage. She comes up to about his waist, and he goes, do you know where you're going to college next year? And she goes, no, because this was early fall. She goes, I'm applying for colleges now and everything. He goes, well, I'm going to pay for your 4 years of college. I am not kidding. If you remember, there was not
I
a
do,
dry eye in the place. I
including
mean,
mine. I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
we were all sitting there in that front row, just like, and we'd known Magic. Like, we knew he does unexpected things. And she's just like looking at him. The place is just standing up, applauding, crying. And the fact that we were the ones that brought Magic to that place was just amazing. Yeah.
I'm really proud we brought
Mhm.
Irvin, and Irvin brought Magic
Magic.
to all those communities. He
Yeah.
really did. And he's still one of my favorite people I've worked with,
One
for
of my
sure.
favorite. Yeah.
And where time is flying by, you have so many great stories. I just want to mention Debbie's worked with U2, the Rolling Stones, Elton
Yeah.
John, Justin Timberlake, Usher, and so many other, and Lenny, my man
Yes.
Lenny. Um, I
Probably
love
all
Lenny.
because of our great friend Gary Arnold, though. Yes.
No doubt about
He's
it.
looking down right now going,
Oh,
oh,
I
Brian.
I miss Gary all the
Mhm.
time. I love Gary, and Gary was a huge part of the
Of
story,
the story.
for
You know,
sure.
who I'm working with a lot now? I started with the Super Bowl, and he's kind of intertwined in the different projects. That is such a Gary fan too, is Jimmy Jam
Oh
and
yeah,
Terry Lewis. And I mean, we never do any, Jimmy and Terry and I never do an event together that somehow is like, Gary.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Hmm.
yep. I miss Gary a lot, and there was a couple of things we were talking about doing after I left Best Buy, and then he got sick, and we never got to do them. And
Yeah.
I miss Gary a great deal.
Yeah.
So here's looking at you, Gary. Um, Listen, we are running short on time, and I don't want to. I want to hear about what you're doing now, because you're doing some really exciting stuff.
I am, for an encore career, I am having so much fun. So I work now for Minnesota Sports and Events. And we were the organization that was commissioned to bring large-scale sporting events to the Twin Cities, not necessarily for the game, but for the economic and reputational impact of these, because sports is that unifier. Sports brings people together. So when the US Bank Stadium was built, it put us back into the league that we could get the Super Bowl, we could get the Final Four. We'd spent a decade of not being able, not having the venues to attract these big events. So after the we came together for Super Bowl. We came to, an LOC. Then everybody leaves and gets another job. Same thing with men's Final Four. You create all this talent and they go get another job. Well, what Minnesota Sports and Events does is we are the group that bids on and executes the big events. So starting with the women's Final Four and, then the Big Ten basketball tournaments, the NCAA, other tournaments, wrestling is so big. We did the gymnastics, Olympic trials. We have the World Juniors coming up. We have SummerSlam, 2 days of WWE coming up.
That's
And I am
That's
having so
great.
much fun working on that. But right now, it is all about hockey. This is such a cool international event. It's 10 nations coming together. They play 28 games between Excel and Mariucci, starting on December 26th. And it's the future of the NFL. The World Juniors in Canada is like the Super Bowl. The whole
Right.
world on Boxing Day, that's all they watch. So we have this coming to town, but it's not only the games. And I think one of we think the secret sauce of why we are having so much success in securing these events is because we do a lot of fan, experiences and fan fest, because most of the game, Super Bowl, men's Final Four, Olympics, tickets are expensive and hard to get, but you still want the whole community to feel it. You want the legacy of the community. These people come in, and these organizations come in, they build basketball courts, they sponsor reading clinics. I had 1,000 gymnasts dancing on Nicollet Mall to Prince music last year. So just getting our community involved, but our measurement is the economic impact. And, at the end of the day, you don't care who really wins the game unless you're a fan. But, so for example, the economic impact to our community for World Juniors is anticipated to be about $75 million. So between December 26th and January 5th, that's not too bad, because
That's pretty soon you're talking about real money.
real money.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So anyway, that's what I do. That's what I get to have fun doing every day now. And, right now it's kind of in like, we had the 50-day out press conference, and kind of scary that it's 50 days out, but it's all going to come together. So
If you're all over it, it's going to be great. I know it is. And we're going to link the events that Debbie just mentioned, the World Juniors and the Summer Slam, because those are both. And one of the things you always did, and you taught me, was it's not about who wins or loses the game. It's about the community that hosts winning.
Yep.
And you always made that happen.
And
you
the
really
cameraman.
did. Yeah, exactly. And you were always, that's right. The cameraman is so important. Got to get that
That's right.
shot.
Yes.
I want to tell you too, I had dinner a couple of weeks ago with our friend Eric Curry
Eric.
and our friend Jay Pivick. And you introduced me to Eric, and Eric is one of those friends when I haven't seen him in a while and we catch up. it's like not a day has passed. I love Eric.
Mhm.
I love Jay. And a couple other folks were there that were really nice people with significant roles in the Twin Cities. And I brought up your name and I said, I'm trying to get Debbie on the show. And I said, she's an unsung hero of the Twin Cities and the country. And they both said unanimously that Debbie is a gem, a star. And it was so nice. And so all the great things you taught me, all the great things I learned, all the great experiences, you delivered my friend Eric, which I really, really
Oh,
appreciate.
well, thank you. And we can't forget that, like, the vision and the support when you were leading Best Buy was just so supportive, because you did, and I'm not the only person that said, you listened to people and you learned. And we always have to be a student. We're always a student.
Otherwise, we're prisoners of only what we can see. And by
Right.
definition, it's limiting.
Mhm.
Debbie, I could sit and talk to you for an hour. I'm so, so grateful for your time. We're going to link your events. We're going to
Thank you.
link your company. And I thank you, my friend. And let's have that lunch. I'm going to take
Yes,
responsibility for it. Okay.
I
And
think we should.
Debbie didn't mention it, but I think it's okay. Debbie's grandson is a frequent guest in her office on Fridays, which I think the best
That's right.
encore of all. Um,
That's right.
thank you, Debbie.
He's our Friday intern.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, that's
Well,
it for this episode of the most important podcast ever. A huge thanks to my friend Debbie Estes for sharing her story, but an even bigger thanks to you for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, and who wouldn't, please share it with someone who will find it meaningful. Debbie is a star and has done great work for this community, and I think understanding her perspective is a really cool thing. You can watch and listen on our YouTube, and you can find our podcast wherever you find podcasts. And please subscribe. It's free and it helps me out a lot. I want to thank the crew here at Streetside Studio 7, our producers, Thomas and Sean. And I want to thank the wonderful people at the Deja Blue House of Coffee in beautiful downtown Alexandria. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.